She stepped into the first-class cabin in a plain dark sweatshirt and gray sweatpants. No makeup, no jewelry, no flashy designer bag. Just a backpack slung over her shoulder and a calm, quiet look in her eyes. But that simple choice of comfort over appearance sparked a storm she never saw coming. They laughed, they whispered, and finally they kicked her out. What they didn't know? Her husband owned the airline. By the time the flight landed, everything had changed. The sun was just beginning to rise over Denver International Airport, casting soft light across the glass and steel as passengers hurried through the terminal. Olivia Bennett moved at her own pace. At 34, she didn't rush for anyone. Her blonde hair was tucked under a plain black cap. Her outfit? Simple gray sweatpants, a dark gray sweatshirt, and a silver bracelet that had once belonged to her grandmother. The kind of clothes people wear when they want comfort, not attention. No one would have guessed she was married to Alexander Bennett, the billionaire tech genius behind one of the biggest transportation empires in the world. And that's exactly how Olivia liked it. She sipped black coffee from a small paper cup, the kind you get from a corner cafe, not some luxury lounge. She'd turned down their private jet, told Alexander she wanted to fly commercial, just once in a while, to remember what the world really felt like outside the walls of privilege. At gate A22, she sat watching the mix of travelers, families juggling kids and carry-ons, older couples holding hands, a teenager with headphones too loud, and a group of business types glued to their screens. It reminded her of her own life growing up in a small Colorado town, before the wealth, before the media attention, before her name meant something. First-class passengers for Summit Airlines flight 782 to Boston may begin boarding. Olivia stood, picked up her backpack, and walked calmly to the gate. A man in a tailored suit standing nearby looked at her outfit and gave her a double take, as if her clothes were out of place. She was used to that by now. The agent scanned her boarding pass, hesitated for half a second, then forced a smile. "Thank you, Miss Bennett. Enjoy your flight." She nodded, unaware that the next few hours would become one of the most unforgettable experiences of her life, and everyone else's. As Olivia entered the luxurious first-class cabin, she was met with deep, navy blue leather seats, polished wood accents, and glasses of champagne being offered before takeoff. A flight attendant named Diane stood by the door, smiling at passengers. Her smile faded slightly when she saw Olivia. "First class is to your left," Diane said with a tone that didn't quite hide her surprise. "Yes, thank you," Olivia replied warmly, moving toward her seat, 2A by the window. The businessman from earlier had boarded just behind her. She could feel his eye still on her as she placed her backpack in the overhead bin and settled into her seat. She didn't pull out an iPad or laptop like the others, just a dog-eared paperback book, something familiar. Not 2 minutes later, another flight attendant appeared beside her. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said. "May I see your boarding pass?" Olivia raised an eyebrow, but handed over her phone without a word. He stared at the screen, then back at her, then at the screen again. "One moment," he said, before walking toward the front to talk to Diane. The two whispered, glancing in her direction more than once. Olivia kept her eyes on her book, trying to stay calm, but she'd seen this play out before, too many times. Diane returned with the lead flight attendant, Caroline. Her name badge sparkled with years of seniority. Her tone was cool and polite. "Ma'am, there seems to be some confusion with your boarding pass." "There's no confusion," Olivia said gently. "I'm in seat 2A. Caroline gave her the kind of tight smile people use when they don't want to say what they're really thinking. "Our system sometimes makes errors," she said. Or maybe you don't think I belong here, Olivia said calmly. I didn't say that, Caroline replied. You didn't have to. By now, the other passengers were starting to notice. One man lowered his newspaper just enough to watch. A woman in a pearl necklace shifted uncomfortably, but no one said anything. Not yet. Richard, the male flight attendant, came back. Ma'am, perhaps you were upgraded by mistake. Or maybe I bought the ticket myself, Olivia replied. There's no dress code for first class, Diane added quickly, but our passengers usually present themselves in a way that reflects the premium experience. Olivia's voice didn't change. So it's not about my boarding pass. It's about how I look. Silence. The businessman across the aisle finally spoke up. I wear sweatpants in first class all the time. Never had a problem. Sir, this doesn't concern you, Caroline said stiffly. It should, he replied, because it's not right. Caroline turned back to Olivia. We just need to make sure everything is correct. Our system says this seat is for an O, Bennett. That's me, Olivia said. Olivia Bennett. Richard folded his arms. Do you have ID to confirm that? Olivia paused. You didn't ask anyone else for ID. Why me? It's just standard procedure when something seems off, Caroline said. What seems off? Olivia asked. That I'm not wearing a suit? That I don't fit your picture of a first-class passenger? She could feel her heart pounding now, not from fear, but from something deeper. That awful feeling of being judged, not for what you've done, but for who people think you are. Caroline's face hardened. If you can't verify your identity, we'll need to move you to economy. The words landed like a slap. Olivia didn't yield. She didn't cry. She just sat up straighter. I can verify who I am, but I shouldn't have to. Not when you've already checked my ticket. Not when no one else has had to. Richard leaned closer. Miss Bennett, if that's really who you are, we're following protocol. Olivia looked him dead in the eyes. Number. You're following your bias. If I were in pearls and heels, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Caroline's smile dropped. Ma'am, this is becoming disruptive. You're making it disruptive, Olivia answered. Whispers filled the cabin. A woman nearby leaned toward her partner. If she bought the ticket, what's the problem? Caroline's tone turned sharp. Either show your ID, or we'll need to move you. Olivia stayed still for a moment. She could have ended it right there. Said who her husband was. Said she owned half the plane, but she didn't. She wasn't raised like that. This is discrimination, she said quietly. You just don't want to say it. Ma'am, we need to complete boarding. Fine, Olivia said. I'll move, but I want all of your names, and this won't be forgotten. Richard smirked. We'll adjust your fare. I don't want money, Olivia replied, grabbing her backpack. I want accountability. As she walked back to economy, escorted like she was being punished, she noticed a few people nod quietly. Some looked away, ashamed. Others didn't care. She didn't say another word. But as she sat down in the cramped middle seat, she looked Diane right in the eyes and said softly, You're going to regret this. And she was right. If this part hit you hard, wait until you hear what happens next. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around for part 2, because the real storm hasn't even started yet. The next morning, as sunlight spilled across the Denver skyline, something different stirred inside the walls of Summit Airlines headquarters. The glass towers, the marble floors, the polished nameplates, they all looked the same, but something unseen had changed, something no building could hide. Inside the boardroom, a long table gleamed under the bright lights. The chairs were filled with executives, wearing their finest suits. Some shuffled papers nervously. Others stared blankly at the door, waiting for the man who now owned their futures. Patricia Winters sat at the head of the table, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the folders in front of her. She kept glancing at the clock. Any minute now, Alexander Bennett would walk in. The billionaire, the boss, the man who didn't tolerate excuses, and today he was attending in person. Caroline Reynolds straightened her uniform and whispered to Richard and Diane beside her, "This is good. We're the success story they want to showcase," she said, smoothing her hair back. Diane nodded, flashing a practiced smile. "They're probably going to make us the face of the brand." They believed it. They believed they were untouchable. The clock ticked. Patricia cleared her throat. "Today, we'll review customer experience. I'm proud to say that, despite minor setbacks, our first-class satisfaction scores have remained strong, thanks to our team." She gestured toward Caroline, Richard, and Diane. The door opened, heads turned. Alexander Bennett entered the room, tall, calm, impossibly quiet, a storm in a suit. And just behind him, Olivia Bennett stepped in her gray sweatshirt, in her light gray sweatpants, in her black cap, carrying no briefcase, no laptop, just herself. The entire room went silent, the way a room does when people realize too late that they've made a terrible mistake. Caroline blinked, not quite understanding. Richard shifted in his chair. Diane's smile collapsed. Alexander took his seat at the head of the table, directly opposite Patricia. His eyes scanned the room once, then he spoke. "I believe some of you met my wife yesterday." A cold, sharp silence fell. "She purchased a first-class ticket on Summit Airlines," he continued. "She boarded, showed her pass, took her seat, and she was humiliated, judged, and ultimately removed. Not because of her behavior, not because of her ticket, but because she didn't fit your image of a premium passenger." Caroline swallowed hard, her hands gripping the edge of her chair. Olivia stepped forward. She wasn't angry. She didn't yell. Her voice was steady, clear, impossible to ignore. "What happened to me isn't new. It happens every day, to people you don't notice. People who aren't dressed the way you expect. People who don't fit the picture you have in your head." She dropped a heavy folder onto the table. It spilled open, page after page of documented complaints, ignored by the system, buried under excuses. "I talked to your customers," she said. "I listened to their stories. 27 cases in 3 months. People judged, dismissed, embarrassed." Patricia tried to recover. "Mrs. Bennett, I assure you, this isn't reflective of our values." "But it's reflective of your culture," Olivia said softly. Caroline finally found her voice. "We were protecting the premium experience." "No," Olivia replied. "You were protecting your biases. You saw sweatpants and assumed I didn't belong." Alexander's gaze swept the room. His voice was low but carried more weight than any shout. "This isn't just about 3 employees. This is about a system that has taught them to think the wrong way. A system that allowed this." Caroline stammered. "We didn't know who she was." "You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with dignity," Olivia said. Richard opened his mouth to say something, but stopped. There was nothing he could say that would change what everyone in that room now knew. Alexander leaned forward slightly. "We won't fix this by firing 3 people and moving on. That's not leadership. That's cowardice." He turned to Caroline, Richard, and Diane. "You're not being fired. You're being reassigned." Their faces twisted in confusion. "For the next month, you will work in customer advocacy. You will take every complaint call, every email. You will hear firsthand how it feels to be dismissed, to be judged, to be overlooked." "And after that?" Richard asked, his voice cracking slightly. "After that," Olivia said, "you'll spend a month working in economy class service. Not premium cabins, no champagne, no first-name greetings. Economy, where you will serve every single passenger with the same respect you would give a CEO. If you prove you've changed, Alexander added, you may reapply for first-class service. Patricia nodded frantically. We'll roll out new mandatory training, company-wide, anti-bias education, real oversight. Alexander tapped the table once with his pen. And from today forward, all complaints mentioning discrimination will be escalated directly to the executive team. No hiding, no excusing. Silence. Real, heavy silence. Not a single person in that room doubted that Alexander Bennett meant every word. The meeting adjourned without applause, without smiles. Executives filed out quietly, their faces pale, their hands tight around their papers. Caroline, Richard, and Diane stayed seated, staring at nothing. For the first time, they understood. This wasn't about punishment. It was about becoming better, or being left behind. 3 months later, the world at Summit Airlines was not the same. Olivia boarded her flight to San Francisco. Same seat, 2A, same clothes, sweatshirt, sweatpants, cap, same backpack. But the atmosphere had shifted. Flight attendant Richard approached her seat with a quiet, genuine smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Bennett," he said, placing a glass of water carefully on her tray table. "It's an honor to have you flying with us again." Olivia smiled warmly. "Thank you." Richard hesitated. "I just wanted to say something." She nodded, inviting him to continue. "These past months have been the hardest and most important of my life. Listening to real passengers, hearing their stories, seeing their pain. It opened my eyes. I'm sorry for the way we treated you, and everyone else before you." Down the aisle, Olivia watched Diane gently help a young mother struggling with her child stroller. No eye-rolling, no impatience. Just quiet, honest help. In the galley, Caroline handed an elderly man a cup of tea, her hands steady, her words kind. It wasn't just them, it was the whole airline. Customer satisfaction soared. Complaints fell by more than half. Summit's reputation, once quietly criticized, now became a model. Other airlines called, asking for advice. A real culture shift was happening, not because of a viral story, not because of punishment, but because real, painful, necessary work had been done. The plane rose above the clouds. Olivia pulled out her phone. A message from Alexander waited. "How's the flight?" She smiled and typed back. "Different. Better. Worth it." She looked around the cabin. 2 teenage boys in hoodies laughed at a shared screen. An elderly woman with worn shoes reclined comfortably. A man in paint-splattered jeans read a paperback with a focused look on his face. No whispers, no second glances, no judgment. Just people, traveling, being. Caroline pushed the beverage cart toward her, stopping with a soft, sincere nod. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, "I want you to know, you changed my life. You didn't humiliate us. You gave us a chance to see what we refused to see." "That's all I ever wanted," Olivia replied. As Caroline moved on, Olivia leaned back and closed her eyes, letting the steady hum of the plane fill the space. She knew the world hadn't changed overnight. There would always be more work to do. But right here, in this moment, on this flight, in this cabin, it had changed. And it started not with anger, not with revenge, but with a simple woman in sweatpants who refused to accept less. If this story touched you, share it, because real change doesn't come from big speeches. It comes from small actions, from everyday people who decide they won't accept unfairness as normal. If you've ever been judged by your appearance, or if you've caught yourself judging someone else, you're not alone. We're all learning, we're all growing. and together we can make the world just a little bit better. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our community, because kindness isn't a luxury, it's a right, and it belongs to all of us.